Go. Hey everyone, and welcome to another Wednesday morning drive. How are you? I'm doing good. I am tired. I am super tired. It's been a crazy couple weeks, but I'm getting through, and it's Wednesday. I'm doing. So I'm behind. I will tell the truth. UHC has been going out. Last episode comes out today. I hope you guys have been enjoying that. Yes, I died early because, exploring a ravine is not the smartest idea in the world. Oops. But I hope you guys have enjoyed sorry, there's a bus that I'm passing. I hope you guys have enjoyed, the spectator view of that. I know it's not something a lot of people put out on the UHCs, but we talked about it kind of as a team. I said I was going to do it. No one objected, and I think it's kind of a cool little recap. If you don't have time to watch everyone else's episodes while they're in it, you only get part of the view. And I thought having the commentary going on as they were working was kind of cool, so I put them out there. So there's that. I haven't recorded my next lineage for this Friday. I have to do that. I haven't recorded anything on Ryotcraft since the map's been, since episode 1, and I need to do that. I am so far behind because I am so busy with work. I am getting stuff done. I'm programming right now, which is awesome. It's not really a part of my job description anymore, although I wish it was. But it's hard to do. It's very hard to program and run a team and set and figure out, like, what are we trying to build up here, and also work on stuff down at the bottom. Because programming requires you to get into a mindset, to take the problem, put the problem inside your head, and kind of have it in there. And every time you have to get out, that model disappears. And so then you have to start trying to rebuild it in your head every time. And so that constant back and forth is just kills trying to get anything done. So, it is what it is. But it's good. I'm doing it. I need to know how stuff works, and it's what I love to do. So it's fun to be able to do that. But since I'm doing that so much, I haven't even decided what I'm going to talk about today. That's how, focused I am on the problem. So I thought I would since I'm programming right now, I'm spending a lot of time in my development tools, and I'm spending a lot of time working with them. And I have a rather particular setup that I've got, that I've got working over the years, and it works so well. So I thought I'd share a little bit about how I set up my development environment in order to do work. So, it's pretty much customized. I use the same type of thing for Ryotcraft.com, www, because I maintain the website. Zog was going to help, but Zog's kind of a little busy doing Ryotcraft, so awesome. More power to him. The website doesn't need a lot of help, just unless we really actually wanted to fix some of the outstanding items on it. But hey, it is what it is. So I'll talk a little bit about that. It's Ryotcraft. The website, that website is a heck of a lot simpler than a real project, so a lot of the features are missing on that. But I'll talk about how I have my environment set up for kind of in general, and then some specifics for the way I use it with the project I'm working on at work. So, in general, basically, I have a few tenets that I want to live by in my development environment. One is to use the right tool for the job, and the second is that things should be portable. I have a desktop at home that I use for my recording and work there, and I have my comfortable chair, Aeron chair, by the way, or you can have that thing when you take it from my cold, dead butt. I love that chair. But, I have that workstation, which is super comfortable, and I have my laptop that I have for work and, goes with me around. And so I want to be able to seamlessly move between those two computers and just have it work. And so a lot of my computer setup is making sure that those two are the same. I put a lot of setting files. I use, if a program does what I want it to do and uses some kind of syncing mechanism, that is going to win over a program that doesn't have some kind of syncing mechanism. So like 1Password, or I use Moneywell to manage, and yes, I'm a Mac user, so these are those programs to do my money, and they use Dropbox to sync, which is amazing. Actually, Dropbox is kind of the key to my whole, both computers stay in sync strategy. If a computer doesn't offer Dropbox as a syncing strategy, I still use Dropbox to sync it. And usually that involves finding where the settings are kept and using symbolic links to move the settings into that folder, which is an amazing thing. Google symbolic links. Basically, you replace the folder in the program, wherever the program's looking for, with a link to a location on Dropbox, and it will follow that link and it will look there, and then Dropbox will sync it all and it works. And most programs I found work fine that way. Some of them really hate it, but those I tend not to use, and those I just have to manually keep in sync, and they annoy me and I curse at them every day. But most programs use Dropbox fine. The one caveat to this whole thing is I am one person using two different computers at two different times. And I do, when I leave a computer, when I leave a workstation, when I'm done with it, I do close things down. And that's really important, because especially for this kind of hacky manual syncing, if you have the two symbolic link syncing, if you have the two programs, two instances running at the same time, you can get conflicts between those programs. So you do have to be careful with that. Although a lot of them are pretty smart, and when I'm setting those up, I make sure only put in Dropbox the information that should be shared. If there is local data, if there's something that is built, I don't put those. So it's only like the core settings. It's only, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about my project structure. So that works overall for that. And I have a folder called code that is in my home directory, and I have it in my dock. I have it all set up, and my code folder itself lives in Dropbox. So all of my code is in sync between the two computers automatically. And that is not source control. I also use Git, but the code itself, so local changes or whatever is that, live inside Dropbox and synced between the two computers. Now, I then have, a work folder, a personal folder, and I have a third-party folder where I keep all the code assets of, there's a couple tools I use that in order to build them, you check them out and compile them, and then you have an app. Those types of tools I keep in that third-party folder. So that's basically it. And then I go into, so the next level is if I go into the actual work folder. So that's kind of my general setup of my computer overall. As far as tools I use for development, I use well, okay. So the project I'm working on now, and the one we're going to talk about for the rest of this, it's a Java application. It is built on a framework called Brightspot, which I had never heard of, but it's a really cool CMS. If you're looking for a enterprise level, enterprise is such a bad word, but if you're looking for a big company level, and not even big company, but a big honkin' CMS that is highly customizable, does not work out of the box, it's not one of those like WordPress and you can just pick it up, install it, customize it a little bit and go. Like, this is, you need something very tailored for your own work and needs it to support multiple sites from the same backend platform. Look at Brightspot, because they do that better than anything I have ever seen before. It's amazing. I really love the platform, and it's what we're using for my work project. So anyway, that's what that uses. It is a Java application. It runs on Tomcat, and basically that's what you need to know. If you know that, you know some other things. So that sits in a folder in my code directory we'll just call it CMS for now. And the source folder, inside of that, I have two folders. I have a source folder, which is where all the source code that I check out for Git goes, and then I also keep a Tomcat instance for every application. So a separate Tomcat folder, separate, completely separate install for every project, which is great because you can customize it, you can do everything you want, and it's not going to screw up any other of your projects. Yes, you can only run one of your projects. Well, I could set it up to have multiple projects running on a time, but I'm only working on one at a time really anyway, so I just shut them. They all share the same port, and I turn them on and off as I need them. But that's cool. The Dropbox folder lives within, the Tomcat folder lives within the code folder. So theoretically, it's on Dropbox. However, I use selective sync, and I turn off syncing on all computers so that folder is never actually sent back and forth to Dropbox. And the reason for that is that folder changes every deployment. The stuff in that folder changes all the time. I'm lying. The Tomcat folder itself is synced with Dropbox because the server settings are all on the computer. So that's all going and running and stays in sync, and it works. The web apps folder, I explicitly turn off using selective sync so that the web apps folder does not sync. I also do the same thing inside the source code folder. All the files that are generated with a build, those are not synced back and forth. So basically, anything that you change manually that you want to stay the same, synced. Anything that just gets compiled or automatically generated, not synced. And that keeps the synchronization very small and very, it works super well. And yes, Git will work perfectly fine inside of a sync Dropbox folder. I can make branches, I can make tags, I can commit, I can do a bunch of Git stuff locally, and when I go to my other computer, all those changes are exactly there. As far as Git is concerned, it's just like working on on the same computer. It has no idea that it's being synced over Dropbox. So it's awesome. So that's how all that stuff works. Then I use IntelliJ to do my programming. With Java, you pretty much need an IDE. I toyed with using VI. I used to be a VI user. We talked about this before. I actually use for daily text file editing. When I come in the morning, I fire up Emacs. When I go home at night, I shut down Emacs. I always have it running. It is what I use to edit one-off text files, but I do not use it for project-based programming because, I haven't tried to set up Eclim and Eclipse headless instance, and just because it's so much work to get to where IntelliJ already is out of the box. And I know that's kind of a stinky reason, but it is the reason. So maybe I'll toy around with that someday in my free time that I have plenty of. So that's all going there. Tomcat, IntelliJ, doing that. I do not sync the IntelliJ settings with Dropbox. I use a plugin. It's actually, I think, built into IntelliJ now for settings, repository sync. It pushes it to GitHub, keeps everything in sync there. And it works pretty well. I keep my installation thin. I turn off any plugin that I don't need. So, it comes with Grundle support and Groovy, and we're not using Grundle and Groovy on this on any of my active projects, so I turn them off and I don't load them. I think there's only a couple extra plugins I've installed. One for Markdown parsing, one for get less file or ignore file parsing, so it can highlight things that are get ignored. And I think that's most of it. I have everything set up. Oh, I have a terminal plugin, so I can run the terminal from within IntelliJ. And that way I just don't have to bounce back and forth. And, it works. I never really have to leave except to go to the browser. I keep it running up full screen, so I have all my code there, and then I go back and forth between, a browser screen and that screen to do my testing and working and all of that. I did bother to set up the run configuration, so I can, I click, we use Maven for the build, so I have a Maven target, so I click, run full build. I have not got it to deploy to my local because it's a global build file, and my local setup is a little different than everyone else's, so I don't know. The Maven, I just run a little deploy script and do it. It's not that difficult because the way our architecture works, we have a little live loader that loads it back into Tomcat if anything's changed. So I basically only have to deploy if something goes horribly wrong. But I just have a little shell script that copies the war over, and it works, and it does that. So that's about that. And I'm wondering what's going on because this police officer is not letting anyone go. She's just sitting here. Okay, now she's letting people go back and forth. She was just standing there looking at all 4 directions, looking at her, and not letting anyone actually move. So hopefully she'll let one of us go. There we go. So, yeah, I'm a little earlier today. So I'm actually in school traffic, which is lovely. I cross 2 school zones on my way to work, but normally I'm after they're done, so I don't have to deal with it. Anyway, where was I? So, that's pretty much it works. The power of the targets, I click that, run the Tomcat, it goes, and, it's magical. It's just, I shut it all down, and I go to my other machine, I run my program, and bam, it's like I, never left off. It's like I'm not on a different machine. So, I don't know. For Ryotcraft, I do pretty much the same thing. Even though it's only me, I mean, obviously it's not Tomcat. It's a WordPress install, so it's running on PHP on a remote server, but I've kind of duplicated the same things. I'm using IntelliJ for that too, simply so I can have a common environment, but basically I have the remote server plugin, so I can open up that project, and the deploy or the build and deploy, instead of being on a going to a Tomcat, it just puts it on a remote server. I do have everything in Git, so that's all working to have the source control there, and it's highly simpler because and I'm running a local Apache. That's an important thing to have. I run a local Apache and a local PHP to be able to debug. I think that's pretty critical to do development. You have to have a local debug. And when I mean local, I mean really local. Maybe a virtual machine that runs locally on my machine would be acceptable, or a Docker container nowadays. I haven't played with containers or anything, although I really, really should, because I think that would be really cool. A VM would be nice. It would be nice to be able to clone it without doing local setups and all of that. Probably a better way to do it. I do not like having to develop off of a virtual machine that is in a cloud somewhere. It makes it so you are dependent on the internet to be able to do anything. Because I am a programmer who must run code to make sure it works. I program by saying, all right, do this. All right, there it is. Do this. Now there it is. Now do this. Now there it is. Like, I'm not one of those, let's write a big long thing and, oh, it works. I have to try and, I'm like, oh, wait, that wasn't quite the right thing. I meant do this other thing. That's just how I work. So I need to have that local environment running, and there's lots of times when I don't have access to the internet, but I want to be able to, do a little bit of stuff and do that. So I need something local on my machine that I'm working on in order to be able to work. So VM in a cloud, I know a lot of people do that for development. Fatal flaw for me. It is just, I can't deal with that having to be connected issue. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers how I got things set up and how I got it working. At least as much as I can without diving in and showing you what it looks like. If anyone is interested in my, my local environment file setup, my development environment setup, any of that, I'd be happy to do a screencast of how I got that working. But if no one cares, you know, it can be dry and tedious. I'll just skip that. So, you know, let me know. Let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see it as. See it is. See it is. See what it is. So, hope you have a good week. I will talk to you next week. I will hopefully not be as exhausted next week as I have been these past 2 weeks. Apologies if it was a little rambling today. I honestly have this feeling right now that I've just been kind of blab, and it is what it is. So, keep playing. I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye.